Hi, welcome back to Therapy Designs. My name is Kelly, and I'm here to help you improve your design skills for your print-on-demand business so that you can make more sales and generate more income. If that is something that you're interested in, please hit like and subscribe and comment below your main reason for starting your print-on-demand journey. So in today's video, I'm going to go over how to make a kind of more complex design. And so that what you're seeing here on this sweatshirt, this has a lot of sort of cropped and cut out things with a background remover. So it's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit of a longer video, and you do have to have a little bit of patience, but it's a really cool design style. So if you would like to learn how to do this, go ahead and stick around. So here we are on Canva's homepage. We will be creating another t-shirt design today. This one is going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more complicated. If you watched the last video, it will give you a little bit of a heads up on what we're doing. So let's go ahead and start with our blank canvas here. So I'm going to go to the top hand side where it says custom size. We'll click that. Now I prefer to start with 4500 by 5400 pixels. That is the size I use for all of my t-shirt and apparel designs, and it does seem to be the most versatile. And I do prefer to optimize my designs for the darker colors. So I'm just gonna go ahead, select my blank canvas, and I'm going to hit black for my background color. Now I've had people ask me about sort of these square or rectangular boho style designs with flowers and whatnot. So we're gonna go ahead, go over kind of how to do that. And I'm going to show you my winter version of that. And then I'm going to show you kind of how you can find that on Canva as well. So we are going to start with a square. So I'm using my rulers and guides. By the way, if you don't have your rulers and guides up, hit Shift and R on the keyboard. That will pull up your rulers and guides. So that's Shift R. If you are having trouble with that, if you go over to File, you should be able to go down to settings, and then right to the side of settings, it'll show rulers and guides, and it'll tell you Shift R. So that is what you're going to look for. And I am just using these sort of to create sort of that square that I want to work in. So, and you can do that, you know, however you want. You could also just pull a square up on your page and that would work too. But I'm giving myself sort of a border to work within. And so that is kind of what I'm looking at right here. And it doesn't have to be perfectly square. You could do one that's a little bit more rectangular. It just depends what it is you want to do. So that looks, you know, relatively square to me. So this is where I'm going to be working inside of that square. That is where everything is going to cut off too. So for this one, instead of doing, you know, just the kind of flower design, we are going to go ahead and do a wintry design. And so I thought, let's go ahead, let's add some poinsettias for flowers. Let's do maybe pine cones, maybe some holly, some snowflakes, and sort of do that style. So I'm going to go over to elements, and we are just going to start searching. So there's lots of different ways we can search. I started with boho, but I didn't quite get what I wanted. And I went ahead and tried, you know, some groovy stuff. In the end, I just want to go with sort of more wintry ones for this particular design. So I think I just went ahead and did a search for winter to get some ideas and to see what I thought might work. And so initially I thought, okay, I want to do some snowflakes. You do have to keep the snowflakes pretty simple. So for this design style, the more simple, the better, and the better it's going to work. You may have to play with this a little bit to get it just right. But something like that snowflake, that would work pretty well. It's a nice simple snowflake. And so as I'm scrolling down, I'm looking for things that are kind of a little bit bigger, like a little bit more simple. That one would also work good as a snowflake. That would be a little bit more complicated. I probably wouldn't want to do that. But as I'm scrolling down, easy snowflakes, easy winter stuff. If I come up with like, oh, that might look cute there, or, you know, here's a cool poinsettia, that might look cool here. And so I'm just clicking on anything that I think might look good for my design. What that's ultimately going to do is save anything I click on to my recently used, and it's going to give me, you know, everything I want easily there for me to select from. And so whenever I'm doing a design like this, it always helps. You know, there's a cool kind of leaf thing. Here's another snowflake that I think might look good. It's simple. And so anything that I think may look good, I can go with. You know, there's something there. I don't have to use them all, but I'm just looking for anything that I think might work. And if I get any designs along the way, I can do a more detailed search. So, I mean, right now I'm just searching winter, but if I decided, okay, I want to search specifically for snowflakes, I can go ahead and come up here and then do a more specific search for snowflake and see what comes up for simple snowflakes. And so lots of different simple snowflake styles that may look good. So like here's just some simple ones that I might pull up that I think might work. And you can do anything that you like. And I don't need a ton. I just want to make sure that I've got a good enough variety for what I'm looking at. You know, pretty simple, straightforward stuff. I also know that I wanted to do more of a poinsettia because I did have one poinsettia that I found in the winter section, but I wanted to go ahead and do maybe a better search for that. So I can go ahead, Christmas poinsettia, let's see. And here are some poinsettias, and I can pick any I want, but again, the more simple, the better. If I want to stick with all solid colors, so that might work a little bit better than having the multicolored ones. So I really want to just kind of keep it as easy as possible. So I'm going to scroll through, see if I can find a simple poinsettia that I might like to use. And there's some holly in here that might look cool too, so I could do some holly as well. And at this point, I'm just searching. I did like this one, I think, because I could change the color, and that was just going to be one solid color. So I thought that might be an easy one to do, but there's lots of other ones here. Here's, you know, some holly that would be easy to do. I liked some of that. And so just sort of scroll again, pull out anything that you think might work for what you want. You'll get a little bit of better idea sort of once you see this all put together. But okay, let's go ahead. I also wanted maybe pine cones. Oops, pine cone. And again, something really simple for pine cone, something like that would be a nice, simple, just solid pine cone. It doesn't have to be just one color, but I think it's going to work best if it's at least either one color or, you know, something like this where I can change the colors, but it's not necessarily a gradient or like watercolor style. I want it to be more of just that sort of solid style. I mean, here's a pine cone there that might work. That's the same one. It just has a gradient color to it. Here's another one that again is just sort of that black and white style where I can change the color. So any of these might look good. That one's a little bit more narrow. I like that one's a little bit wider there. And then anything else that you can think of that you might want to try for winter. I mean, you know, anything that comes to mind. So, you know, maybe pine leaves or anything else, as long as it's nice and simple. I can put maybe winter plants and see what comes up for winter plants and see if there's anything simple, a simple branch kind of thing like that might work. I already had something like that one, looks good. I was hoping for something pretty simple, but like this, but maybe with a few leaves on it, something more like this, but not quite. I know I saw one earlier that I liked. You can of course just do, you know, these kind of leaves as well. So once you've gone ahead and looked for a while and you've pulled out what you think is a good number of graphics for you to start working with, you can go ahead and just drag them all off of your page. And they'll end up being in your recently used, so you can go ahead and sort of select from there. So I'm just going to move everything out of the way so I've got a nice blank page to work with, but everything is sort of saved where I can easily get to it. So here's my blank page. I'm on Elements. I'm going to close this down, and you'll see just right at the top it'll say recently used. I can hit see all, and now everything that I pulled out is here at the top, which is going to make it a lot easier for me to sort of select things from what I've already pulled out. And so from here, it's just going to be a little bit of sort of placing and playing. So for example, I want a pine cone. Maybe I want to do this pine cone just to see how it looks. I'm going to change the color here. It's black, so I can't see it. So let's go ahead and pick a brownish color. Again, it doesn't really matter. We can pick a different shade in a little bit if we want, but let's go ahead and start to there. Maybe I move this pine cone sort of over to the corner. Maybe I angle it. And the idea is to get things kind of either close to the edge, or if they're coming off of the edge, we're going to kind of crop them off. And so I'm going to get this down right kind of close to the edge there, and that's kind of perfect. I may angle it, I may play with the size of it a little bit bigger or smaller, but right now let's just sort of set things generally speaking. And it's like a puzzle. Now I've done a design similar to this one before where we did sort of the winter like flowers. This is a little bit different because it's going to be a little bit more of an overlap and cutout effect, but you'll see when we get to it. Here's another one that I liked. I was gonna maybe even have this go ahead and go off of the page a little bit so we do get a little overlap from the page there. I was gonna do maybe some sort of like plant here in the middle. That might look kind of cool. And all of these I can change the color, so I'm not too worried about the colors right now. Here's a cool poinsettia that I thought might look good. And again, I can do something like this. Now there is a caveat here as you're starting to do this. Anything that's going beyond your square, we're going to go ahead and crop out. And because we crop from top to bottom and side to side, not at a diagonal, if you're going to put things in the corner here, they have to be squared up. So they have to be either vertical or horizontal, but they can't be at a diagonal in terms of, you know, like the box, because when I crop, I'm going to have to crop straight down. And so just keep that in mind. Anything in the middle, you can make diagonal, you can do whatever you want with, but if it's going to be near the side, you're going to have to sort of make sure that it fits squarely in there so that it'll be able to crop real easy. And so that was just my caveat there, something to be aware of. I've got lots of cool designs here. Here's a snowflake. Let's go ahead and make the snowflake a nice light blue color for now. Again, I can change the colors. I'm thinking of having that snowflake, I guess, sort of come out over the line here, something like that. A little bit of an overlap. I'm deciding how much of an overlap I want. I don't know, we're just gonna play with these, and of course I can move them around too. I'm thinking another snowflake somewhere down here, and I'll have that one cut off. Again, just playing. Maybe another poinsettia thing down here might look cool. So I liked this poinsettia here. I'm deciding how exactly I want it to fit. Now don't do too many things because we don't want anything too small. So when we do the background remover, which we're gonna do to get rid of all the blacks and everything, anything that's like way too small, that's where you're gonna have to start having problems with the background remover. And that's when we might have to start playing with things. So anything that's gonna have tight spaces like this, where you're gonna have to cut out all those little black areas, try to make that nice and big. And because we're putting some of these nice and big in here, don't make anything too small again. Okay, so we're just playing around at this point, and we're just gonna start adding, you know, snowflakes, adding whatever kind of symbols or whatnot that we want to use. Again, we can play with the colors a little bit once we get our layout sort of the way that we want it. I'm thinking I'm going to make that pine cone a little smaller. And just like a puzzle, we're going to start putting this together. Okay, so I have played for a while and I have come up with this. So right now I haven't done any of the colors. I haven't, you know, decided what's on top of what. I've just kind of filled my space up. And so it's filled the space up pretty well. I've got some bigger elements, some snowflakes, my flowers. I have things that are going outside of my square, and everything that's going outside of my square is still oriented up and down in terms of the layout of the graphic. That way I can crop it. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with the cropping part so you guys can see what the square will look like. Then we'll go ahead and change the colors and go from here. This was really the most time-consuming part. So you've played with it for a while, found what you wanted, laid it out. That's what takes the most time. From here on out, it's a lot faster. So we're just going to start. So I'll start with any of the pieces that are going outside of the edge. And what I'm going to do is hit this little square box here where it says crop. And then you're going to take one of the corners, so the corner should be white at this point, and you drag that corner right down to where your crop line will be, which will be the edge of the square. And I'm going to have to do that from both the side and the top. And you can see it cropped out the rest, and it just gives me that point. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hit the crop. And again, anything that is sticking outside of my square that I've defined is going to get cropped. And so we're just going to go ahead and go like that. And I'm going to do this for everything that is overlapping. I'm just going to bring it right into that crop line. And one by one, you'll see how this is going to work out. Anything over the edge is going to get cropped out. And try to get that as close as we can to a perfect line there. And again, cropping that. Same thing here. This was just a little bit, oops, hit the wrong thing. Crop. This one I can't crop because I did it at the diagonal. So I just got to make sure that I move it up high enough so that it's not right off the edge there. So I can just do that. Perfect. That doesn't need to be cropped. This one here needs to be cropped. So I'm just going to bring it down so that it's level there. Bring it into the side. So far, so good. And then I've just got this one here. Again, crop and bring it right down to level. And so now what we can see is we've got that perfect square. Okay, so that's what we're starting with. Now I want to go ahead and make sure I get my colors sort of the way I want it. So like, for example, I think I want to change the colors of just about everything on here. So let's start with the poinsettia. I don't want it to be that dark, and I do want to kind of keep it all sort of a redder tone. So I might do something like that's a nice red. I might even make the gold parts red. I'll leave that sort of dark line there as is. This one I might decide I want to make it the same red as this poinsettia. This one, snowflake, I don't want the snowflake to be red. I'm thinking more along the lines of a blue for the snowflakes. And I might do different shades of blue. I'll just kind of see how I feel. But let me go ahead and start. If I can kind of change the color of some of these so that they're all similar in color. That one won't let me change the color there, but it's blue, that's fine. This one, I do want the leaves to be more of a green shade. And I'm thinking I want, you know, these little red areas to be a little bit closer in color to the poinsettia. So we'll go ahead, see if I can make, oh, I see what we did there. Make those areas nice and red. Might go ahead and make the line here maybe more of a brown. Or we might keep it that blue because it looks like some of this isn't going to let me change the color. Okay, we'll go ahead and stick with the blue there. But for these, I do want to have some greens. So let's go ahead and pick some shades of green. Doesn't really matter. Let's just see what we can come up with that might look good. Another shade of green here. Maybe something a little bit darker or a little bit more blue or green. Somewhere in there might look good. So that might work. Here again, same thing. I'm going to want some of the greens. So depending on which green I want it to be, the blues, I'm going to kind of want those to be that same red color here. I've got white line. I guess I could keep the white line. This I want to be, if I'm going to do the stem in brown, might want to just make everything there nice and brown. And so That already looks a lot better the way that that looks, because the colors are going to pop a little bit more now, kind of what I want. Now I'm deciding what goes on top of what. So I kind of like the way everything is looking in terms of what's overlapping. I've got this is going to overlap, that's going to overlap, that's going to overlap. Those aren't necessarily touching. There's a little bit of an overlap here. I think I'm going to move this one to the back. That way the flower actually overlaps that plant. It's going to be a little bit easier. And so now what we have to do is anything that is overlapping something else, we have to put an outline around it. So much like if you watched the other video, we had to put an outline around the text to get that cutout look. We're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to start up at the top. We're going to go to edit. And then here we're going to go ahead. We're going to go down to shadows and you're going to pick outline. And we're going to need that outline to be black, okay? And you can play with the size. You want it to be relatively thick, but not so thick that, you know, it just looks like there's way too much of a gap. So something there, that's sitting at 39 right now, and I may play a little bit more, but let's go ahead and get all of these outlined first. So pick your element, go up to edit. You're going to go down to shadow. You're going to put outline. You're going to want your outline to be black. And then you can play with the size of the outline so that it looks, you know, relatively thick enough that you have a bit of a gap. And we can always play with it more. And we're going to do this one as well. Again, we're going to go to edit. I'm going to go to shadows. I'm going to go to outline. We are going to up that outline so it's nice and thick there. And I'm actually going to outline this one too, even there's just that little overlap there. So I just want to outline this one too so I can get that little overlap. So again, I'm just going to do shadow outline. It's black and it's going to give me that little gap line between those two things. And nothing else I don't think is overlapping. And so far, so good there. Now there are a few sort of empty spots here. You can see some spots here that are just sort of plain areas where we might go ahead and use some different like filler. And so the way I'm gonna do that would be with just some little circles. So if you hit C on your keyboard, that's gonna create a circle for you. You shrink that circle way down so you got tiny little circles, okay? And we can do a few different sizes as well. And then you can just go ahead and pick what kind of color you want. So maybe some of those snowflakey colors. Hit Control D to duplicate it. So Control D will duplicate it. You'll have a little copy of your circle and you can put another circle there. So we can have a couple different size circles that we're working with, right? Something like that. And just sort of randomly filling the space. And again, you can zoom in if you want to see nice and close. You can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to go ahead and make those circles kind of in just the right spot. If you need to like move them up, down, left, right, something like that to sort of get them spaced the way you want them. And you don't have to have too many, but just sort of random spattering of some of those circles up close to the edge even might look good. I'll do another double circle here. So something like that might look cool. Might take this little one, move it down just a smidge like that, or maybe even down a smidge more. And I'm just sort of playing here. I'm actually gonna move it. And again, you don't need a lot, just a few little dots here and there that sort of are gonna make it seem like you're filling that space up a little bit better. And we can do different colors of the dots as well. So something like that looks pretty cool. Right now I've got all the snowflakes sort of that same color, but at this point now, if I wanted to change some of the shades of some of them, I could. So maybe I want to give a little variety. I'm going to bring that a little bit more into maybe the teals. And so, for example, there's a snowflake that's a little bit different. I can do this one too, maybe a little bit more into that teal, maybe take this one again. That one's one color, that one's one color. Let's These, because I already did the outline on them, they're not going to really let me change the colors, and that's fine. I can change the colors of some of these dots here. Again, not all of them, but just so that some of the dots have a slightly different shade. Maybe that little one right there. And that looks kind of cool. So I just got a little variety. So that's what it looks like now. So now what we have to do is we're going to end up doing a kind of a background remover on it to get some of those gaps to cut out. Okay, but before we do that, if we're going to do any font, that's going to have the cutout, we're going to want to put the font on there as well. So for this one, I was going to go ahead and put a little bit of stuff. I was going to put some winter vibes down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit T on my keyboard, and we'll start with a nice text box. I'm going to bring that down here. For now, let's go ahead and make it that color just so I can see it. This is going to be in all caps, and I'm going to put winter vibes. And let's go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. Now, again, when it comes to fonts, you can do anything you want. Do make sure that it's something that's a little bit more simple and easy to read. But beyond that, you can do anything you like. I went with one called Bright Harmony because it was big and bold. So something like that looked pretty cool. It was nice, big, bold. I'm going to make it so that it goes across the bottom here. And I'm going to make it so that it overlaps just a smidge with the bottom. And we'll go ahead and put the outline around that. So I can go up to Effects and do my outline, make my outline black. Okay. And again, I can play with the thickness of the outline too. That is just going to give me that cutout into these bottom graphics here. So you're going to see something like that, with just that little bit of a cutout. I can, you know, overlap as much or as little as I want there to sort of get that look. I like the colors. I'm thinking maybe something a little lighter. Again, I could go with the reds, I could go with the greens, I could go with the blues. I actually kind of like the greens a little bit because I feel like it's a little bit different because I don't have any green down here where I do have the red and the blue, so I want a little contrast. But maybe I do a slightly different shade. Kind of decide what color I want for my text. And then I can always go ahead and change these colors here to match. So maybe I do something a little bit more like that. Maybe with the white, I go ahead and make that, you know, maybe a darker green or something like that, or the blue or the brown even. So I can do that any kind of color I want. And that looks kind of cool there. Okay, so I was playing with the colors a little bit because I wanted to make sure that I had at least some matching colors in here. So I went ahead and made this sort of match that green there. It gives a nice contrast. And so I like, again, the way that this looks. So once I have it the way I want it, what we're going to do, I'm going to get rid of my lines here. Okay. And I'm going to group everything together because at this point I want to make sure it all stays together. So we'll just hit group. And now what I want to do is make this as big as I can, because when we do the background remover, again, it's going to be tough to do in some of the littler spaces. So if you've got some really small spaces, it may be hard to get that perfect cutout. So it's always easier to go ahead and make it nice and big in your page. And this may take a few tries. So I'm going to tell you right now, when I did the test for this video, it did take me a few tries. I had to make a couple things a little bit bigger because they were a little too small to work. I had to increase the size of my design here in the page to make sure it worked. So sometimes it does take a little bit of playing with that background remover. I know it doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes it misses spots, or sometimes it takes away spots that you don't want it to take away. That's usually because it's too small of an area, or it's not entirely sure what the background color is. So I try to make sure I have a good contrast between the colors I use and the background color, and make sure that I don't have any areas that look like way too tight or small. So let's go ahead and we're going to give it a try and we'll see how it works. I'm also going to go ahead and add a page down here so that I can see the results when I get it. And then I can title this page up here, and I'm going to put Winter Vibes. Oops. And we'll put black And I'm going to go ahead, go to share. We'll go to download. You do not want a transparent background for this one. You do want it to be a PNG. We're going to keep that solid background. We're just going to select page 1 and we're going to hit done and download. We'll give that a second and then we'll go ahead over here and we'll upload it. And then we'll go ahead and see how that worked. So once it's done, I'm going to upload it and we'll just go ahead and throw it on this bottom page right here. Okay, so we have the design up and we're going to go ahead and see how this works now. So I'm going to hit background remover. We can cross our fingers, hope it all worked out fine. If not, we're going to have to play with it a little bit, and that does happen, so no worries there. But let's see if we can't get it on the first try. And I actually think it worked pretty well. I'm losing a few spots right up here. Is that the only spot? Just these little dots here. Everything else I think worked pretty perfectly. A couple spots here that didn't quite come out, but for the most part, it looks pretty darn good. Yeah, so not too shabby there. Okay. So what we may do is just try to make this area a little bit bigger, maybe this area a little bit bigger, but for the most part, it worked really well. Now, little bits through here didn't work. Okay. Well, let's try again. So again, sometimes I have to try, sometimes it comes out absolutely perfect. So let's go ahead, let's ungroup this. And sometimes it's literally just playing with it the tiniest bit that makes the difference. So I'm going to make this flower a little bit bigger. Okay. I'm going to make this snowflake here a little bit bigger. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit more so that it's something a little bit more like that, which I think will work a little bit better there. These seems pretty good. I don't know why that didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, because I don't really want that to be any bigger than it is. Everything else worked pretty easily. Let's go ahead and group it all together again. Let me bring that out just a little bit more. Okay. Let's take 2 and see if it works this time again. It's all about just playing. And sometimes it's a little hit or miss, but sometimes a tiny change just makes all the difference. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go ahead and just, download that first page, and we'll take 2. Okay, so not gonna lie, it took me a few tries. So it took me maybe 3 tries to get this right. So I finally got it. This is what it looks like. So after we did the background remover, everything looks pretty good. We can see through everything. Everything looks pretty full. There's no big issues. If there was something really small, you could always go ahead and just cover that up literally by hitting C on your keyboard like that. Like let's say we were making a circle, I could make a tiny little circle like that and I could put it over something solid. So let's say there was a hole here in the red, I could put a circle there and then just try to match that red color and cover it up that way. Now you can't see that circle, so that's one way that you can cover up if it's something very small. But this actually turned out really well. I like it, but it did take playing with the sizes of some things. Making some things a little bit bigger. I ended up making the page a little bit taller so that I could make everything bigger. So before it was a little shorter, a little more square, so it kind of cut off here. And what I did was I made it a little bit taller of a rectangle just so I could make these things a little bit larger in the page. And by doing that, it made it so that it worked pretty well. But there was some playing, so there's not like a surefire way that I can tell you guys how to do this. It is a little bit of trial and error, a little bit of playing. Make sure that everything is large enough because it has trouble with some of those little areas. But if you make that nice and big, or as big as you can, usually things will work out pretty good. And again, if you've got any itty little bitty things, you can cover them up pretty easily. But so now this is what I have. If I switch the background color back to black, you can see now it looks pretty good. And now it is ready to go up on, you know, anything you like. I mean, here's kind of that original, and I have to group these all together, but I just sort of played with them and then got this down here. And so now it's ready to go. I know it takes quite a bit of time to do this kind of design, but it does look really good when you're done. Now, I also did want to show you guys as a bonus, since you stuck with it through this long, and I know this was a really long video, I want to show you how you could get some of those just sort of boho groovy style flowers. And so if I went down here to add page and I went up to my elements, I can search, I want to say it was groovy flower, I don't know, maybe square. I'm not sure exactly how I searched for it, but I did find them here. So something like this is probably what a lot of you are thinking of in your magic recommendations. There you go. So there are a lot of this kind of style that somebody was asking about already up on Canva. So you can certainly take any of these ones that are already made in this sort of square style, throw some words on them, you know, add a little bit to it, change it somehow. And you could definitely use some of these already made ones to kind of get that look that you, some people were asking for. So like, here's another one here. So there's plenty of these kind of already made ones. So this is just sort of a little bit of a different take. We're not getting that sort of groovy look, and I'm not getting that sort of distorted look, but I am getting the sort of square design there with the little overlaps and the black in between. So anyways, let's see, what do they call this? Retro floral seamless pattern. Okay, so that's what they're calling it. Retro floral seamless pattern. Is that what they're calling all of these? Abstract wavy flower, different things that you can call these. Groovy abstract flower. Okay, what does this one say? Groovy abstract organic plant shapes. Okay, so just different search terms that you guys can use if you're looking for this. Groovy abstract, okay, same people. And so you can see how you can go ahead and search for this style here. So it says square retro flower print, okay? So sometimes it helps to know your search terms and what it is that you need to sort of look for. Didn't mean to do that. What is this? Abstract groovy geometric daisy flower. Okay, so whoever was asking about this particular style, that's how you would go ahead and find it in some of the search terms that you could use to get it. I know this was a little bit tough and it can get frustrating at times. Sometimes you do have to play with things a lot. Sometimes it comes out perfectly on the first try, and that's always great. And if it doesn't, don't worry. You may have to, you know, play with the sizing a little bit, play with the spacing a little bit. You may have to change elements or change text sometimes, or you may have to do a little bit of manual cover-up work. But when you get it right, it really does look good. And if you get a good design and you can put it on a lot of different products, it is always worthwhile. Anyways, go ahead and practice this technique. None of these things can be learned, you know, without practicing them for a while. I hope you guys are doing really great. I hope you guys are doing good on your sales. And I do hope to see you guys again next week. That's it for today's video. If you found that useful and would like to see more videos with helpful tips and tricks, be sure to hit like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the weekly videos. As always, keep growing and stay creative, and we'll see you next time.